back when Maura Healey was running for governor, she promised that if elected, she'd create a new cabinet-level Secretary of Housing position to help deal with one of the most pressing challenges facing the state. And this week, she announced her pick, Ed Augustus, a former state senator and city manager of Worcester. On Thursday, at an affordable housing event in Lowell, Augustus described how he plans to approach his new job.
Lots of folks here today and over the last few days have asked me, what's driving your work? And it's really two words: more, faster. That's what it's about. We need to do everything we can to get more of these projects underway. That has to be our urgent task, and that has been the charge I've received from the governor.
But after the Augustus hire was announced, some housing activists raised questions about whether he's really the right person for the job. Concerns detailed in the story by my GBH News colleague, Sam Turken, who joins me now. Sam, thank you for being here. Who is concerned about the Ed Augustus pick, and why are they concerned about it?
Hey, Adam. So, housing advocates based in Worcester and really, statewide housing advocates were surprised by the pick. One, because they were expecting somebody with a little bit more housing expertise, and Augustus just does not come from that background. He was the city manager in Worcester from 2014 to 2022, and in Worcester, city manager runs the city. And granted, he oversaw the revitalization of Worcester during his time. He brought in a lot of developers to build, and thousands of housing units were built while he was city manager. But what housing advocates say is the vast majority of those units were high-end luxury market rate units that weren't affordable for a lot of people who live in Worcester. And they did not do anything to help address Worcester's growing affordability crisis. In fact, while Augustus was city manager, rental prices rose to record highs, homelessness rose to record highs. So these advocates were a bit puzzled when the governor selected him to do something like reducing housing costs and building more housing, when he didn't necessarily do that in Worcester.
One of the advocates that you talked to, Andrea Park from the Mass Law Reform Institute, who we've had on the show, she raised questions about what this tells us about Healey's broader approach to the issue, right? Her concern is that maybe the Healey administration is just going to be locked in on building, period, as opposed to building affordable units that the most economically vulnerable people can afford to live in. Am I getting that right?
Right. And there is a difference, because just because you are building doesn't mean you are addressing the affordability crisis. There are differing opinions on this, that if you increase supply, you're naturally causing prices to go down. The thing is, in some cases, if you increase supply by building just high-end, expensive housing, you're not doing much for the people at the lower end of the ladder who can't afford that housing. So Worcester is the case study. Worcester saw that happen. Worcester has seen this boom in high-end housing, but again, it's done nothing for people at the lower end of the spectrum.
I should probably mention, or give you a chance to talk about, you quoted one housing activist who was pretty bullish on the Augustus pick, right? Who was that?
Yeah, his name's Addison Turner. He's based in Worcester, and he advocates for homeless people here. And what he said was, he was very stark with what he said. He said, look, gentrification increased in Worcester under Augustus.
Oh, forgive me. I'm sorry to interrupt. I wanted to refer to, he was very down on the Augustus pick, but there was someone you talked to who was positive about it, correct? Or someone you quoted?
Oh, yes, Rachel Heller. I did not speak to her specifically, but she was publicly congratulating Augustus, and she was a member of the governor's transition team, and she seemed to be happy with the selection. And I'll say other housing organizations here in Worcester were hesitant to criticize the pick, because they didn't want to jeopardize any connections and burn any bridges by criticizing the selection.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that's, when you're dependent on an administrator or an entity as powerful as a gubernatorial administration. You got to choose your words carefully. Sam Turken, I have to leave it here with you, but let's get you back sometime soon to talk more about Worcester-based politics. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.